Mr. Chairman, first of all, I would like to congratulate you on your appointment as Chairman of the Council, and secondly, I would like to welcome the newly elected members of the Council. The beginning of the new year has shocked all those in the world who had hoped that the respect for international law and non-interference in the internal affairs of other states, as well as the support for diplomacy and the search for compromise, would become the key principles of the new American administration. In the eyes of many, the coup against the leader of Venezuela, which was accompanied by the death of several dozen Venezuelan and Cuban citizens, was a precursor to the return to the era of lawlessness and the power-hungry American domination, chaos and lawlessness, from which dozens of states in various regions of the world continue to suffer. There are no and cannot be any excuses for the crime committed by the United States in Caracas. We strongly condemn the armed aggression of the United States against Venezuela in violation of all international law. In connection with the confirmed information about the arrest of the President of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, and his wife in the United States, and today, as we know, in New York, we call on the American leadership to immediately release the legally elected president of an independent state and his wife. Any problems and contradictions between the United States and Venezuela must be resolved through dialogue. This is what the UN Charter stipulates for us, the goals and principles of which a number of states in recent years have begun to apply electively, depending on the political situation. Today, we are reaping the fruits of their irresponsibility and electioneering in matters of compliance with the norms of international law, which were justified with a so-called peace treaty based on the rule of law. Here is your peace treaty in all its glory, which terrifies even the convinced Atlanteans. Mr. President, we express our firm solidarity with the people of Venezuela in the face of external aggression. We fully support the Bolivarian government's course aimed at protecting the national interests and sovereignty of the country. The aggressive actions of Washington have already condemned many states and multilateral unions, including the Non-Proliferation Movement, the African Union, and the Group of Friends for the Protection of the UN Charter. We hope that this international robbery will undoubtedly receive an objective and comprehensive assessment in the international legal framework with the use of universal, mechanical UN, and other multilateral formats. Recognition or non-recognition of the legitimacy of Nicolás Maduro should not affect this process. Therefore, the incomprehensible brawling and attempts to escape from the principled assessments by those who, in other situations, demand from others compliance with the UN Charter look especially hypocritical and inappropriate today. I hope that you will realize this and will abandon the double standards and will not try to justify such a drunken act of aggression and will not be afraid to infuriate the American world gendarme who is trying to be reborn. The invisible cynicism with which Washington did not even try to camouflage the true goals of its criminal operation, the establishment of unlimited control over the natural wealth of Venezuela, and the assertion of its hegemonic ambitions in Latin America, is especially striking. Thus, Washington gives a new impulse to neo-colonialism and imperialism, which have been repeatedly and decisively rejected by the peoples of this region and the global South as a whole. Colleagues, the current situation is extremely important. the unity of the entire international community in the decisive rejection of the methods and instruments of the American military foreign policy demonstrated in the case of Venezuela. Only in this way can we make Washington reconsider and abandon its dangerous delusions. As we said at the previous meeting on Venezuela, the bell in the entire region is ringing in every country of the Western Hemisphere. It is ringing in all the member states of the UN and in the future of the World Organization itself. Not to hear it today means to show youthfulness and prudence, in fact, blessing further improvement of international law and simply civilizational and interstate behavior. It is impossible to allow the United States to deny itself the role of a high judge who has the right to interfere in any country, to determine the culprits, to punish them, and to execute them, regardless of the terms of international jurisdiction, sovereignty, and non-interference. Is this the world we aspired to, celebrating the 80th anniversary of the adoption of the UN Charter, when we all signed under the corresponding statement of the Chairman of the Security Council? Is this the direction of the UN reform for which we all advocate? Or the UN and its Security Council do not exist today, and everyone needs to take Washington as a symbol of its sovereignty and the freedom of expression of each nation and its right to independently determine one's fate? Is it not worth anything? These are the questions that we all need to answer today. If this answer is honest and principled, then maybe the American leadership, which openly declares its intention to govern another country in the interests of the United States, will look into its own constitution, starting with the words, "We are the people of the United States," and will begin to recognize the sovereignty of other states and not engage in the change of unpleasant regimes.